The recent release of the book Gangster State, which details corruption allegations against ANC Secretary General Magashule, has put the issue of freedom of expression in the spotlight again. The launch of the book by Pieter-Louis Myburgh was interrupted by a group of protesters. Magashule has denied all allegations made in the book and threatened to challenge the author in court. To discuss freedom of expression in South Africa, in studio, we're now joined by Samkelo Mokhine, Executive Director at the Freedom of Expression Institute, Member of Council at SANEF, Chris Louw. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I want to talk about the disruptions at the book launch a little bit later, but I want to start off contextualizing the issue of freedom of expression in South Africa. And I want to start off by asking, Chris, is freedom of expression a right that is afforded only to those who fought in the liberation struggle, or is it afforded to every South African citizen across the board?
I think that's a really great point. I think that those of us, myself included, that haven't overtly fought for freedom of expression must absolutely benefit from those that did fight for it. Surely they fought not only for themselves, but they fought for society in general and for South African citizens as a whole. I think it's very important to understand that the media and organizations like Samkelo's are really the only ones that look after freedom of expression in a country like ours. You know, if freedom of expression had to sort of disappear from what a SANEF, what ENCA, and what any press organization or media organization looks after and does on a daily basis, then we're left with a few civil society organizations and a few other organizations that look after it. That's a slippery slope, and we don't want to be there. And I think it's very important for everyone to understand that freedom of expression can very easily start slipping into an area where not only media, not only other organizations, but civilians in general are then silenced for their opinions. Everyone has a right to their opinion. We may disagree with one another at times, but we all have that right.
Samkelo, I'm going to come to you now, just sort of try and get to the nitty-gritty. Is there a difference between the freedom of expression afforded to ordinary civilians and that afforded to media organizations? And how is freedom of expression in the media regulated?
I think the first point to make and make adequately is that the right to freedom of expression is quite wide, so it doesn't only apply to people in the media. There are other people that do write books, like one of the board members at FXI, Zelda, writes novels, and as well the arts also fall under that category, who enjoy freedom of speech, freedom of expression. If you want to paint, we had a difference of opinion in terms of the spear, yes, proverbial spear, and there were people that differed, but still it is somebody's right as an artist to draw what they want. And in that context, it's much wider than we have seen the pan fight being over the past week. And there are various methods in which this is regulated. I mean, the press regulates itself to a great degree. In some countries, it's the government that regulates it. But the law as well affords those that have been offended or have their freedoms or rights impinged to approach the courts. You can ask for an interdict, which was open to Mr. Magashule to do before the book launch, to say, if I do not agree with and there are lies in the book, you approach the court, you tell them the reasons for it, and you might be granted an interdict. So there was nothing that prevented him from taking that approach, and he threatened but has not done anything, and which is part of the problem now with the people that went on a rampage and took the law into their own hands. Meanwhile, the person who is at the center of the book himself has not done anything. He's just made bad denials but not taken any legal steps which are afforded to him by the law.
Now, of course, the ANC has strongly criticized the actions of its members in protesting, in threatening people at the book launch, in destroying property. And SGA's Magashule has said himself that those members did not act in his name and that he highly condemns their actions. However, any kind of protest of a reasonable group of people requires some level of organization and some level of sort of group thinking to decide this is an action that's been taken against us or against one of our leaders, and this is a sanctioned action or an understandable response. What is problematic about that kind of knee-jerk reaction?
I think what seems to be happening at the moment is that there is a lack of understanding when it comes to our leadership, especially politically around the world, what effect social media has on followers of a particular person or a belief or a party. 10, 15 years ago, you could not mobilize a message as fast as you can today, whatever that message may be, good or bad. Let's start there. Let's not condemn a message yet, but let's talk more about the distribution of it. The distribution of that message these days is fast. It goes to a variety of people, and that then starts creating some sort of a mob mentality, whether it be good or bad. And I think that very often, and if we look at the Jesse Duarte case, there seems to be a lack of understanding around someone who holds public office and the way they need to behave. We can't condone when a public officer sits there and says all kinds of things, whatever she's saying, and we've seen this happen more and more.
Just to contextualize, I don't think there's anyone in South Africa who missed that incident,
yes.
but just for those who might have missed it.
Yes, so we can say that perhaps Jesse Duarte disagreed with the journalist in question as to his line of questioning or how he was questioning her, but the bottom line is she needs to keep her head. She said at the end of that you are just a journalist and I'm just a citizen. I believe that's incorrect. She is not just a citizen. She's the Secretary General of the ANC. She is a massive part of what the ANC is and subsequently what the government is. So she needs to understand that what she puts out on Twitter, and Julius Malema the same, what they put out on Twitter, they have to do so responsibly. And if they do so irresponsibly, they have to actually start taking account for that. So Ace Magashule disagreeing with the book, yes, that may not directly be inciting people, but surely they can start understanding that when they start putting these messages out there far and wide, and it distributes like wildfire on social media, that they do have some kind of responsibility for the people that are wearing their regalia, that are wearing and purporting to be supporting the ANC.
Right. We're going to come back to this, but I want to bring in another guest at the moment from our Cape Town studio. We're joined by Zelda Holtzman from civil society organisation UniteBehind. Zelda, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I just want to double check that you can hear me clearly.
Yes, and good afternoon to you and all the viewers.
Zelda, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit more about UniteBehind and your feelings around the disruptions of the book launch in Sandton, what's happened or failed to happen at the book launch in Cape Town, and your planned event for reading of Pieter-Louis Myburgh's Gangster State in Cape Town, and what your motives are behind that?
Yes, thank you. Firstly, UniteBehind is a coalition of a number of organizations, social movements, religious organizations, NGOs, etc. So it's a broad front of civil society organizations standing for a just and an equal society. I should preface this statement about the burning of books by saying that we are deeply disappointed in the waterfront, V&A waterfront management for disallowing the reading of the book. We think that they should have taken a firm stance to defend the right of the author and, in fact, the right of freedom of expression, and that they had the latitude to do that in that private and also public space, which they failed to do. So we're deeply disappointed in their caving in to the fear of what seemingly is a mounting attack by those who hold totalitarian and fascist views. They should have taken a firm stance. So we're deeply disappointed in them for not holding up, not taking a stance. We therefore decided to hold a public reading of the book on Monday at the Slave Lodge in Cape Town, because we feel that it's one thing to condemn the burning of the books, but we need to go beyond condemning that. We need to caution against the implication of such a stance, what it really means, what that means for democracy, and then even beyond that, what that means for humanity. As human beings, we should be critical thinkers. That differentiates ourselves from anyone else. In the species of occupying the planet, that we are thinking people, and to deny people the right to think critically about things is a stance against humanity. Therefore, we've decided that we will do an active step, that we will have a public reading in defiance of all of that, because we do believe that in the face of fascism, that we need to take a stance, we need to resist, and we need to rebel against that. We need to revolt against that in more clearer terms. I don't think one can express that.
Sorry to interrupt you there. Just to contextualise for our viewers, the ANC Youth League had threatened to hold an event where they would burn multiple copies of Pieter-Louis Myburgh's book. That event has since been cancelled by ANC management and criticised heavily. But that thinking has been described as anti-intellectual. Burning books is something that has happened throughout history. It's something that speaks against ideas. But by reading the book at the Slave Lodge, why have you chosen that locale?
Well, firstly, it could have been anywhere. The Slave Lodge is a matter of convenience. It's also symbolic for a number of reasons, that resistance against slavery and also that slavery was purposive to extreme exploitation. But going beyond that, that could have been also at the Grand Parade or any public space for that matter. So it's not just about the venue. It's the fact that we are holding a public reading. And I should also add, as much as we welcome the ANC's condemnation of the intended burning of the books, and also the fact that action was taken against the launch of the book, we don't think that condemnation is enough. There is an obligation on the leadership of this country to educate our society broadly about what the implications of book burning are. What the implications of that are to democracy, to humanity, to progressive thinking, and what the impact of an anti-intellectual stance. We don't think that the ANC has gone far enough by just condemning the burning of the books. They needed to go beyond that. They need to educate the youth as to what the implications are and why that is so important. We know, and in the general parlance, that every generation must supersede the generation that went before. And in fact, we would expect the ANC Youth League to have a more progressive stance compared to the elders. For example, the ANC Youth League should be concerning itself with the impact of climate change and climate justice. They should be pushing and pressurizing the elders to take a more progressive stance. Yet their stance is more reactionary. Why is that? Why is it that this generation
shortly? I do apologize for interrupting you again. We're going to take a quick break and we'll carry on this discussion very shortly. Do stay with us here on ENCA now.